In this video, I'm going to be going over Psalm 115, and I'm going to be talking about idols, how they were made, and what's the deeper meaning behind all these layers. I'm going to be talking about how these kingdoms were built, a supernatural version, and a more acceptable regular history version. And I'm going to be going over angels again, and I'm going to be talking about voodoo dolls a little bit, how one kingdom just plays off the other. And I'm probably going to touch on artificial intelligence and robots a little bit, and why people were damaging these statues. Basically how the symbolism behind all these idols and why these ancient people were making these things and the deeper meaning behind them all. Alright, so let's read some lines from Psalm 115. Their idols are silver and gold, the work of men's hands. They have mouths, but they speak not. Eyes have they, but they see not. They have ears, but they hear not. Noses have they, and they smell not. They have hands, but they handle not. Feet have they, but they walk not. Neither speak they through their throats. So you have to keep in mind that the Jews lived with the Egyptians for 400 years, and they lived in the ancient Near East. Okay, so you damaging an idol, like removing their eyes and nose and ears, was a spiritual thing that they used to do back then. Okay. You might wonder why all these idols are missing noses and ears and stuff. Well, it was because, okay, I know people think that these idols were just for decoration or whatever. Okay, no, they used to do an open mouth ritual. They used to do rituals where they'd put spirits inside these statues or on the statues. Okay, they were in essence giving these disembodied spirits a body with the statue. And sometimes they represented a god, but sometimes they represented a dead person. And they continually had to offer the idol bread and wine, and sometimes even human sacrifice, because these people, because they thought the actual person was using the stuff in the afterlife. But you had to present it to the idol, okay? Alright. So if you damage the idol, the idol's body parts, that means that person couldn't eat anymore in the afterlife, or couldn't smell, or couldn't hear, okay? And so what would happen is, when another person would damage these idols, it meant that you were hurting that person. This is exactly where voodoo dolls come from, okay? But they were hurting that person in the afterlife. They thought if you damaged that person's statue, that in the afterlife they would be hurting too. So, but they actually had literal voodoo dolls to hurt people that were alive. This is exactly where voodoo dolls come from. They were execration figurines. They were little idols purposely made to be damaged. They were cut in half, burned, cut up in pieces, and buried upside down. Really creepy. It's exactly where voodoo dolls come from. And that you write that person's name on them, and that person's supposed to be being hurt. Okay, so that's where voodoo dolls come from. But sometimes they wouldn't be in the shape of a person. Sometimes they'd just be a clay pot, and you'd write that person's name on the pot, or write some other stuff on there, and then you'd smash the pot. And I actually think that is in the Bible. I think this cursing of this pot, or somebody cursing with the pot, is in Job. Okay, if you read what happened to Job, he was being, the devil was messing with him. He was messing up his life. But if you read what happens, Job finds some broken pottery, right? If you read it, he finds broken pottery. And I think maybe it's this witchcraft is in the Bible, okay? Like maybe it wasn't just Satan messing with Job, but maybe somebody went and actually cursed him. Okay, I think there's a reference to this stuff in the Bible for sure. Okay, so but they also had apotropic objects. These are objects, idols they would make to protect you against evil spirits. So there were several different reasons why they were making little idols. They were putting spirits in them and feeding their soulish afterlife, and they're making figurines for protection. All right, ye that fear the Lord, trust in the Lord. He is their help and their shield. Okay, so we're going to talk about some witchcraft stuff and how God protects you from this stuff. I'm going to bring up this guy named John Ramirez. I've seen a couple of his videos. If you don't know who he is, he's an ex-Satanist who came to God, okay? And he talks about, he was a full-blown Satanist. His stories are pretty creepy, okay? And he would say, people would go to him to go curse another person. He got paid to do it, okay? But he said there was one instance, only one, where he literally was told that he couldn't do it. You can't go curse that person because that person is protected by God. And like an actual demon told him that or something. Like he was actually told by this evil spirit that he couldn't go curse this lady because she was being protected by God. And he was completely bewildered by that. It only happened once, okay? And that's pretty sad because that would mean only one person for the whole time he was a Satanist had a relationship was saved. And that's not very good, right? Okay. Now, God protects people from witchcraft. If you have a really good relationship with God, he's going to protect you from this witchcraft. But if you don't, this witchcraft is probably going to always affect you, okay? Because you have to accept Christ to be protected from this stuff. Okay, and that's that. Even in that, he almost has the exact same story as Balaam. If you don't know what happened with Balaam, he was a witch. He was doing witchcraft, and he was hired by a different king to go curse the Israelites. But he was told he couldn't. He's like, you can't do it. You cannot go curse the Israelites because they're protected by God. But usually he could curse groups of people. That's what he did for a living. Just like John Ramirez. John Ramirez and Balaam have almost the exact same story. But Balaam supposedly came to God, okay? And so yeah, God will protect you from these evil spirits. What you should not do is put up apotropic objects to protect you. Okay, your relationship with God protects you from evil spirits, not putting up more witchcraft. Witchcraft doesn't oppose witchcraft. Okay, do not do more witchcraft to get rid of witchcraft. Okay, you have to have a relationship with Christ. That's what protects you. But a very interesting story that John Ramirez told everyone is that when he was a Satanist, they would go to the actual factories where these were made, like these little Mary statues and all these other statues from every religion, okay? They would go into these factories and they would put spirits inside these idols, just like they were doing back then. They were doing the exact same witchcraft. And he warned you never to buy these things because you are literally bringing home spirits. Okay, so now we're going to talk about something else. So I just read the Bible passage. There are several Bible passages where it talks about how idols are made of different substances. Okay, they're wood, they're stone, they're gold, they're silver, and there's jewels. Okay, and they're layered. And literally, these idols were layered. Okay, so sometimes these idols were made of wood, and they were covered with gold and silver. And if they are really expensive idols, they would put jewels on them. Okay, so this is layers of evil. This is giving evil more and more power, okay? That's why it's talking about all these layers. And in the book of Revelation, it goes over all the layers. It does wood, it does silver, it does the breastplate again, okay? This is talking about you giving the devil more and more power, all right? Layers of power. And no, I don't think it's a coincidence that when it's talking about metal and stuff, and gems, it's talking about electricity, and it's talking about artificial intelligence. It's talking about actual things that are made of metal now that are still idols. Can your electronics be an idol? Are they made of silver and copper? Yes. Okay. Can it be talking about money? Can idols of silver and gold be talking about money? Yes. Can money be an idol? Just because it's not in the shape of a doll doesn't mean it's not an idol, okay? Literally, God uses all that stuff. You have to add current information to this old information. Your electronics can be an idol, just like these idols were made of metal, alright? Okay, God uses old information layered with the new information for more warning. So back then, they were putting spirits into statues. Can you put an evil spirit into a robot? Very possibly, okay? I know robots are not a huge deal yet, but artificial intelligence is scary. Okay, where is that stuff coming from? Is it demonic? Is it just coming from people? I don't know, but they have that whole theory that possibly in the future they can take your consciousness or your brain and put it into a robot. And I know none of that is happening now. I hope not, anyway. That's still transference. It's called soul transference. Is that really going to happen? Or is that just going to be a demon in that robot? You thinking that's an actual person? You know what I mean? This stuff is all in the future, but it's something to think about, and it's pretty scary. But it's still the same concept. You soul transference into a different body is very scary, and it's still a possible reference to the future. And please realize it's still the same concept. It's history just repeating itself over and over again. You putting a spirit into a doll and making it seem like it's alive, or you putting a spirit inside a robot thinking it's alive, is still very similar, correct? Yes. Which brings me to another relative creepy subject, is aliens. If you watch alien stuff, like people who are really into alien theories, they talk about how these aliens actually don't look like this, that they're actually like a spirit inside some sort of synthetic suit that looks like skin, but it's not really them. Okay, it's like they put a spirit inside a suit that looks like this, and they somehow developed some sort of skin suit. And I don't know if that's true. It's just very similar topics. Okay, so I'm actually gonna I'm gonna talk about how kingdoms build off of other kingdoms, literally. Okay, so I'm actually gonna combine regular history with fringy history. Okay, because it's all literally the same concept. So if you look into some of these ancient cultures, I think this is in Peru. This is a wall in Peru. If you look at some of these theories about how some of these really complex statues were made, there are a couple different theories. Okay, I'm gonna do the fringy version of the Egyptian statues. Okay, so if I'm sure you've heard this before. There's no way human beings could have made the pyramids. There's no way humans had the technology to make these super perfect statues. Okay, so a theory is there was a group of giants, or a group of another kind of breed of human that lived a long time ago, and they made these statues. Okay, and later when humans came, the regular Egyptians, they took credit for it. Okay, they said we assume that they built them. Okay, they got a really old statue and put their name on it. Okay, and sometimes they even admit to doing this. First of all, like in Peru, they said that they did not build this stuff. The people in Peru, and even in the Persian story, they said that they did not build those ancient temples. They said giants built them. Okay, and they built on top of it. You can literally see that here. Okay, they took over the old kingdom, and of course historians don't believe that. Okay, they just say, well, I'm sure that they built it, and even the words out of their own mouth tell you that they did not build it. Okay, so a perfect example of that is the Sphinx. They said that they didn't build the Sphinx. Okay, the Egyptians said don't say anything about building the Sphinx. Okay, they said they found it buried in the sand. All right, same thing with the Peru. They said that they did not build these temples. Our giants built them. Same thing with the Persians. The Persians said that they did not build these temples. Giants built them. Same thing. Same thing with the Native Americans. The Native Americans get tacked on with this credit of building this serpent mound, but they said that they did not build the serpent mound. It's perfect. It's supposed to be perfect in every way according to the stars or whatever. They said that they did not build it. They don't know who built it, but they didn't build it. Same thing with China. If you go into the Chinese archaeology, they found these two really big, really old cherubs. They're called chimeras, but I'm calling them cherubs because that's what cherubs are. There's two of them, and they're usually twins. Okay, they found these two really old cherubs. And if you listen to what the people said about them, they said that they found them, and it's creepy because they said that these things started talking to them, and that's exactly what happened with the Sphinx. They said they found the Sphinx in the dirt, and it started talking to them. It's creepy, right? But what happened is that they started copying these things. They started imitating these images, and they used these temples for themselves that were already there. True. But just because it was built by something else doesn't mean that all these people didn't go in and do their own stuff on top of it. Okay, they took advantage of the already built structures and did their own temples and did their own religion based off of that stuff. Okay, that is probably what happened. That is the main theory. that could be technically biblical. According to the Bible, the Nephilim ruled our earth, okay, and it says they ruled all over the whole earth. That would explain all these temples all over the place. That would explain why there are pyramids under the ocean, why there are pyramids in Antarctica, why there are pyramids in China. That would explain that, okay? Maybe these structures were built by the people that got drowned in the flood. And it's so funny because I'm going to bring up the Sphinx, okay? Because they rebuilt the Sphinx head. It used to be they think it used to be something else, okay? And then the humans came along and literally just put a different head on top of the Sphinx, okay? And you can literally see, and then what happened is that there was a big flood, okay? And it killed the people, okay? But it left some of these structures, and there's proof of that. For example, the Sphinx is all water damage. It's almost like a big, huge flood came in and ruined a lot of stuff, but still kept this stuff intact, okay? So that's very possible. Okay, so now I'm really gonna talk about something right now. Okay, so you're gonna I'm sure everyone's heard these theories, okay? So these people before the flood had all this crazy ancient technology, and they were able to build these massive monuments, okay? These big old structures, okay, before the flood, okay? So I want you to think about this. Can you think of a big, massive structure before the flood that God's people built? Noah's Ark. Is it not possible that the same ancient technology was used to build Noah's Ark? I say, why not? What is Noah's Ark not a big, massive project that was probably supernaturally built? Don't you ever wonder how a couple of dudes built the biggest boat ever? Is it possible that God and God's people had access and were able to use this ancient technology too? I say why not? I say all that stuff comes from God anyway, and they got turned around for witchcraft. Alright, I say why not? Noah's Ark could have been built by the same ancient technology that these people had before the flood. So now I'm going to reiterate again. I'm going to talk about again how old kingdoms were reused in new kingdoms, okay? The old buildings were reused. And then now this is regular history, and this is just regular, everyone knows this, okay? Okay, now, but even in regular history, that still happened. Okay, that was fringy history. Now we're talking about real history. Even in real history, that happened. That kept happening. Okay? Some of these pharaohs were knocking their temples down and taking credit for it. And that happened with Hatshepsut's temple, okay? Tutmosis III went and said made that temple for himself when it was actually her temple. Okay. And like when they would switch gods, sometimes they would just scratch out the god's name and put a different god on there. Instead of making a whole new image of a deity, okay, or making a whole new thing, they would just scratch out the god's name and put a different god right there, okay? And now why am I bringing this up? Okay, I'll tell you right now. So just to go over this, these are layers of kingdoms, okay? They would rename gods using the old images, or they would just use the same old buildings for the new temples, okay? This kept happening. Guess with who? With the Roman Catholic Church, okay? When the Roman Catholic Church first started, before they started making their own temples, they were using all these pagan temples. They were literally using the Egyptian temples as a Catholic church. Before they started making their own buildings, they were reusing the temples of Zeus. They were reusing the Persian temples. They were reusing all these old temples for not just for a little while, for hundreds of years. For hundreds of years, they were using demonic satanic temples as their church. From 300 AD to 600 AD. This is a perfect example of this. This is one of the very, very first monasteries. The Catholic monastery made thousands of years ago, but reused by the Catholic Church in 300 AD. Just read what it says. Temple of Hatshepsut, upper terrace before excavation. Brickwork is the monastery of Phoebe Ammon. Phoebe Ammon was one of the very, very first Catholic saints. The Catholic Church was founded in 300 AD, and they immediately started reusing these old temples. Okay, do you want to know why that Catholic saint, his name is Phobe Ammon? Because Ammon is a name of a pagan deity. Okay, the saint was named after a pagan deity. And guess what they did? Not only did they reuse the temples, they reused the statues and the depictions. Okay, Zeus they just slapped Jesus' name on Zeus. Just like I told you, they would scratch out names of God and put a different name. They would symbolically scratch out a name, and maybe they did it literally. They would scratch out Zeus' name and put Jesus, right? Okay, just the tale as old as time, reusing the statues, saying that this is Jesus now. And that people argue if it's supposed to be Apollo or Zeus. It's both. It's okay. It's multiple gods turned into Jesus. Pagan gods and demons, by the way, turned into Jesus. This is Apollo. And then that's Jesus now, too. We're just going to turn all these men into Joseph or Jesus, right? And even in the Persian religion, this guy with rays coming out of his head like that was the Persian Satan, okay? And so the Persian Satan became Jesus, and all these pagan gods became Jesus. And of course, Ishtar, Venus, Lilith became Mary. Okay, they said that's Mary now, even though in half the time, even in these pagan religions, she's evil. Okay, they were literally living inside these temples and reusing the temples and reusing the images and saying that they're biblical figures. They slapped Mary's name on Venus and Ishtar. Okay, and you can literally see it. The Pope is literally dressed like the god of the underworld, who's Osiris the devil. He's literally dressed and is looking the same way because they took that from the Egyptians. The Catholic Church has a lot of winged creatures, okay, these quote-unquote angels. Guess where this angel imagery probably comes from? The only winged creatures a long time ago were the pagan gods. These are winged men and these winged women is where the Catholic Church got their imagery from for angels, probably, right? And not only did they reuse the statues and reuse the temples, they reused their ceremonies. They said, this is all about Jesus, even though none of that's in the Bible. You are literally in a church that is doing pagan witchcraft. And I'm going to talk about something else, something even more creepy, okay? So in this video, I talked about how, you've heard of this, I'm sure. You've seen videos maybe, or seen stories of statues crying blood, Mary statues crying, Jesus statues moving around, and not just Catholic stuff, but, other stuff too. So I have a theory, okay? So these guys, you were literally doing the same ceremonies as these pagan people were doing in the Catholic Church, and they were literally putting spirits inside these statues, which is what you're doing. It's demonic. You're doing the same witchcraft. You're putting an evil spirit in these statues. I don't care if it looks like Jesus. It's not Jesus, okay? And you wonder why they're moving around and doing creepy supernatural stuff, because you're doing witchcraft, the same Egyptian witchcraft. And even in the get a load of this. Even in these Egyptian stories, they said these statues were moving around a little bit. Do you know why? Because you're doing the same witchcraft, okay? And it's not a miracle from God. It's a demonic. Even in the Native American culture, these Kachina dolls are traditionally supposed to turn alive at night and move around at nighttime. And I know these are sold in jewelry stores, like it's just decoration. Most real Native Americans won't keep these in their house because they're evil, okay? I'm not even talking about Christian Native Americans. I'm talking about Native Americans will tell you not to buy these from jewelry stores. If they're going to be really honest, like really honest ones, they're going to tell you not to buy these. They said that they're evil. There are evil spirits inside these Kachina dolls. Okay, and and then people just make movies about this, like it's a big joke. Dolls coming alive at night. It's all just like for kids and it's for fun, right? It's like, no, these are like this is ancient witchcraft from all over, everywhere, okay? Even in the Mormon religion, okay, there's this angel. This angel's name is literally called Moroni. It's literally called moron. Okay, and I'm not trying to make fun of people, but God does stuff like that on purpose, so you know. This angel is literally called Moroni, moron, the angel of moron, okay? And they think at the end of the world, these angels on top of these Mormon churches are supposed to come alive. like it's a good thing, okay? And please stop, okay? And that is terrible. That's horrifying. And this all reminds me of Achan, okay? I think I'm pronouncing his name right. So in the Bible, there's a story about this guy who buried an idol in the ground. He stole an idol from somewhere, and he buried it in the ground, which is a total reference to this version, okay? Because that's what they would do with these idols. They would bury them in the ground. That is a total reference to this voodoo doll stuff. So that guy could have been trying to curse somebody, okay? Because you would bury these things upside down in the ground. So what happens with Achan in the Bible, he gets punished. He brings an idol and it ends up killing his whole family. And I know this is kind of funny or maybe just creepy, but that's exactly what Chucky does, okay? I haven't seen these movies in like 15 years, but if you've ever seen these Child's Play movies, okay? Or Annabelle, okay? These voodoo dolls or these evil dolls don't just hurt you, they kill your whole family, okay? If you ever watch these Child Play movies, Chucky follows him his whole life and kills everyone around him. Same story. It's the exact same story. I know this is evil. Chucky, these movies are evil, and people probably even think it's kind of funny. But if that helps you to understand what you're really doing when you go buy a Mary statue or an angel statue or a Kachina or whatever, or Buddha, if that helps you, just picture you're buying Chucky and Annabelle and taking it home, okay? Every time you see or hear a Mary statue crying blood or crying, think of this. Oh, look, there's Mary crying blood.
Okay.
Oh, look, there's Shiva. Oh, it's all just so beautiful. Okay, and I know people are going to be like, you're using really dark imagery. This is evil. Yeah, it is. Now you know what God really sees when you put these nasty things in your house. So let's read it again. They have mouths, but they speak not. Eyes have they, but they see not. They have ears, but they hear not. Noses have they, but they smell not. They have hands, but they handle not. Have feet they, but they walk not. Neither speak they through their throat. They that make them are like unto them. So is everyone that trusteth in them. This is about becoming what you behold. You will become what you worship, okay? You will bear the image of the beast that you are worshiping. So this is God politely telling you that you're going to be just as blind, deaf, and dumb as these statues if you are doing idolatry, okay? If you're relying on statues, if you're relying on your idols, you're just going to be as dead as they are, okay? You're going to be just as blind, deaf, and dumb and useless as they are without God, okay? And this is about imitating the things that you worship. You're going to start imitating the things around you. That's exactly what happened with the Catholic Church. They were building their churches in and around these old pagan temples, and they started imitating the images and imitating the rituals. Okay, and it's not just talking about you being in a false religion. It's talking about watching TV and starting to imitate the evil people on TV. Okay, the more violent videos you watch or play, the more violent you will become. And you become so ingrained in everyone else's culture and everyone else is doing that when actually somebody comes around and tells you the truth, you are literally blind to it. You're blind to the gospel. You're blind to Christ, because once you hear something that's actually good, you think that's evil. Like, do I really have to tell you that killing babies is evil? No, people are completely brainwashed. That's the other way around. Okay. So, and I want to bring up another layer of understanding when it's talking about becoming what you worship, or becoming what you behold, or becoming what you love, if you don't love Christ, okay? So, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. So I'm going to talk about Shrek real fast. So, I mentioned this in an old video, but anyway, Shrek is probably based off of this ancient Near East demon. He was in the ancient Near East. They thought there was an ogre living in the woods by himself, and he was really mean and grumpy, and he even has like this weird green tint to his depictions, and I am totally convinced that that's where Shrek comes from. Okay, anyway, so what happens if you've ever seen Shrek? You know, he's a big mean ogre, but then then he finds Fiona, right? And then when they get married, she ends up looking like him. If you've ever seen that, like, she magically turns into looking like him. She becomes an ogre too. That totally reminds me of this. You know, like in this video I talk about how Satan wants to marry you, and then he wants to give you the image of the beast. And he wants to make you a part of his family, and family members all look the same and act the same, right? It totally reminds me of that, okay? And and yes, you're gonna be evil and acting evil and being an evil person if you don't worship Jesus, okay, if you don't accept the God of the Bible. But when you die, that probably is very gonna well become very literal, okay? You're gonna be a big hot mess. It doesn't matter how beautiful you are now, you're gonna be a hot mess once you pass over to the other side if you don't accept Christ, okay? You're gonna be nasty. You're not gonna be nice looking anymore. And that reminds me of Jezebel, real fast. If you read what happens to Jezebel, right before Jezebel died, she puts makeup all over her face. And then she ends up being, like, torn apart, right? That's exactly the stuff I'm talking about. Like, people, Satan likes to make things look pretty and nice. But when actually once you pull back the layers, once you see what lies beneath, they're evil. It's evil, okay? Also, another thing that's going on here is you think these evil spirits are just going into these statues. They're going to you. You're the body that the evil spirit is inhabiting. It's not just the statue, it's you, okay? It's inhabiting yourself, not just statues or your electronics. And I don't care how nice these statues look. I don't care if they look like Jesus. I don't care if they're covered in gold. They look very nice. You just wait till you see the evil spirit that this is really about. You just wait till these actual layers are come off and you see what these things really look like, okay? What lies beneath all these layers. The devil likes to put lipstick on his pigs, but that lipstick is going to come off one day, alright? God's going to give you what you want if you spend your life worshiping these other things, worshiping dead things, worshiping idols. God's going to give you what you want. You're going to spend your life doing this stuff. You're going to spend your eternity doing this stuff. And trust me, these things do not look like this anymore. They're horrendous. It is literally like Chucky, man. I am not kidding. It looks nice and friendly. Oh, these statues are just a real good guy, but you just wait to see what you have coming for you if you keep relying on statues to protect and save you instead of relying on an actual relationship with God to protect you. And I really mean that literally. You just wait and see till you see the evil spirit that represents in the statue. Okay, you just wait. Please repent. Please let the stuff go, and please think about them. The Bible says you gotta put away childish things. It's time to be an adult. Put away your dollies, okay? Put away your dollies and learn how to read. Become a real boy and don't be as blind and deaf and dumb as these statues. Please read the Bible. Don't put up dollies all over your house. Be a grown-up. Read, okay? Alright. Please think about this, and thank you.